George Stevens. I'm the founder of Margin, and we are we call ourselves a contemporary care brand focused on skincare that's trying to elevate the form and function of procedure.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Arey, and we're the wrinkle cream of hair care. So we're the first science-backed brand approaching aging hair from a proactive standpoint.
My name is Jay Small. I'm the co-founder of Arey as well. I'm the hairstylist for Arey. And we try and take these scientific solutions and put them into accessible hair care so that clients have the opportunity to interact with these products but not knowing that they have all these excellent ingredients.
Hi, my name is Schneider. I'm the CEO and founder of Armis Fermentis, and we do fermented skincare, body care, and wellness products. So we're really all about overall skin nutrition and balancing out the skin microbiome. Thanks, you guys. So really, as part of this process, one thing we wanted to kind of just bring to your attention or kind of help you guys understand is how do we think about brands and all of these conversations, and what are kind of the areas that we're focused on learning more about. And I would say critically, the most important one is really what is the white space that the founders have identified, and how do they go about finding that? So I'm going to turn it over to the team. They want to jump in and just kind of walk through what was that process and what was that journey for them in terms of identifying the white space.
I'd say it's a gray space for us. So we're working towards preventing gray hair and repigmentation. And it's like a classic founder story. It was a personal problem that I had. I saw gray hair. I went to Jay, who's been my hairstylist for 8 years, and wanted to do something about it and get on top of it before I had to react to it and use hair dye, which is the current sort of solution for gray hair. And then realized, I think there's a lot of other people like me, right? 74% of people between 45 and 65 will experience gray hair, so it's a huge market.
So I actually started the company in 2019, and at that time, gut microbiome was a really big sector for a lot of people. People were paying a lot of attention to what's going on inside of your microbiome. Nobody was really focusing on your skin microbiome, which is just as important. So we were really looking to give your skin the same amount of nutrients that you would give the inside of your body in order to balance out and be the most healthy version of yourself.
Our white space, frankly, was just the founder story is, I had this problem, but the problem was, I was struggling to discover or find beauty brands that really spoke to me from both an aesthetic perspective, but also a clinically effective perspective. And I think what I noticed through a lot of interviews and surveys we do, and just a lot of, talking to people in the industry, was that a lot of the historical prestige brands have a real new code problem where they're working with 25-year-old technology in the product. And it's very, very hard to offer a new and improved option for something when it has to do with your customer's moneymaker. And so I wanted something that, sort of elevated the design, but also the science and felt modern. And we couldn't find it, so we launched in February and we're building it.
One part is the identification of a white space. And I think the second, probably the most critical piece, is the founder's passion and their ability to navigate kind of that ambiguous time period of how do you fight for your idea, fight to bring it to market, and what were the biggest challenges for each of you in terms of bringing, education and knowledge on the white space and really driving that demand?
I would say for us, our brand started in 2020, right? And so as we moved into the pandemic, it gave us the opportunity to kind of rethink hair care. Hair care for much of my life as a veteran of the industry had been very reactive, right? And so now we found ourselves in this proactive space where instead of I have dry hair, I have coarse hair, I have these things, what if we could grow better hair in the future? And that's when we started to look more skin deep. And in that time, there was an opportunity not only for clients to see themselves without going to a salon or without getting facials and all these beauty regimens done, but it was also an opportunity for us to take a deep dive into things that we had just assumed. We assumed that going gray was only 30% was linked primarily to genetics, when in actuality it was only 30% of why we went gray. leaving 70% inside of the consumer's control. And so I think for us, it's about, not assuming what we knew for all these years, and finding this kind of new space in this new market.
I would say the biggest challenge for us, especially when we first started, was our fermentation. At that time, nobody was doing it. People didn't really understand it, so there was a lot of education that had to go into it. And I like doing that. I have a science background, so I want to be able to educate people and show people why this matters so much. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. Fermentation has been around forever. I'm just trying to bring it back to more of the mainstream of things. And so I would say the biggest challenge was definitely education. And now that microbiome is turning into such a big sector and people are really looking for that, it's been a lot easier. Especially after the pandemic, everybody is looking for healthier options, looking for more innovation, something that they can really connect to, especially if it's a founder story or if they're trying to connect to the overall aesthetic, feel like they're a part of something. So that's what we've been trying to do and definitely have overcome over the years.
Yeah, I think like from an education perspective, I think generally, playing squarely in the skincare space, there's a lot coming out, especially from the mass channel. And so really it's less education that's a challenge and more sort of communicating the feeling and why spend more on your products, why use better ingredients, why buy into a brand. And it's, trying to communicate it in tangible, which is very, very difficult. And that's been certainly a challenge on the intangible side, and then on the physical side, just everything's difficult when you're making it physical. And no one, all the service providers like to talk about how they're your partner, but really, it's you're the one who gets it.
And I mean, it's difficult to convince a consumer that wants this product. And I know we had a conversation earlier. It's even harder, I think, to convince an investor who isn't familiar with the product or the white space or the need. I'm going to jump over to you guys because I thought you had a relevant story. I had a relevant story that I asked you about actually. I was speaking with another investor about their product, and he was like, I don't understand what's the difference between the product and hair dye. And I was like, wow, somewhere you didn't get the story. So how do you work through that? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's, we have a limited time span to get people's attention these days. And so you have to quickly grab at the things that are interesting to people. And I think, like the stat of there's one gene that causes gray hair, and it's 30% of why you go gray, right? So it's like, we have to educate with these really informative stats and give information and explain that this is something that's more in your control. There's 2 genes that cause hair loss, by the way. So feasibly, you can control gray hair more than you can control hair loss. And so for us, for investors, it was really like talking about the size of the market, the opportunity, the ability to control this thing that we think is uncontrollable. And but it's hard. I mean, you really have to catch people's attention quickly these days.
I think we spent a lot of time too, early on, as all founders do, we were convincing ourselves that there was a really strong market for us to find ourselves into. And then once we started to see customers come in, we really had to help the investors relate to the customer. And I feel like sometimes that maybe isn't felt. I'm a hairstylist, so I know what it's like for someone to have roots and want to fight that hair color or have to get rid of that hair color. But maybe someone who is investing in your company doesn't understand the pain points of what your customer might be going through and what you're actually solving. We're solving future gray hair, yes, but in the present time now, there's a bunch of people that are using color to cover their hair, and what is it that they're feeling every 4 to 6 weeks? And so never assume that the person that's sitting across from you really understands the actual person that you can speak to.
Yeah, I mean, I think for investors especially, what I have noticed is that experience is what sells the most and it gets people as passionate about it. When you're going in with a partner, you want someone to be as passionate about the product and the brand and the story as you are. So I would say trying to create that experience for somebody, you're not just selling a product to someone, you're trying to create relationships, and you're trying to give them an overall feeling of what you're trying to that's really important to be able to relay that to investors, to customers, to anybody that you want to feel as passionate about the product as you are.
I think the other thing that really was it's somewhat difficult but manageable is trying to communicate to investors that lowest price or lowest common denominator or most commodified product doesn't win. This generally, historically, hasn't been a winner-take-all industry, and I don't think that's necessarily going to change. But trying to explain, why things shouldn't all just basically cost, and it shouldn't be just the largest mass players should win, and where the white space is when you're served up with, ads for beauty businesses every day. And so I think what I found worked really well, and I don't know if this is answering your exact question, was just laying that out and trying to lay out the landscape for no matter what sort of segment of the market you're targeting, and try and pick off pockets. Because when you start laying it out, and I mean, it's painful positioning 150 brands on a page, but when you can lay it out and sort of highlight, look, this is where the market's underserved, I think suddenly you can have this unlock and aha moment. But until you do that, I mean, you look around this room and you think to yourself, why does another brand in the better for you category exist?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And that's kind of that intangible piece that we look to suss out through these conversations. Can you actually articulate to me why you are going to be different in crowded stage? I think another thing that we try to suss out is, are there others in the beauty ecosystem who have championed you? Are there people who have gotten behind the brand and are not motivated by financial returns, but purely out of the love of the brand and really seeing the brand take its own space? It'd be great to hear some stories about those that have been supportive of you today.
We get a lot of love from the Doobie Dudes. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this podcast, but total freak, happenstance, they started buying the product and have continued, one of the co-hosts has continued to buy the product, and have been championing it on the podcast. We've had good luck with podcasts, period, just with cold outreach to people saying, I think what you're doing is interesting, this is what I'm doing, I think it's interesting, would you like to try it, and get a good pickup there. And then retailers are our living champion right now, as we've had, we've been 9 months in market, and a lot of the retailers we're going after, I would say, are slightly non-traditional beauty retailers, and generally they've been very keen, I think because it's unlocking a new share of wallet for them. And so wherever any of you can pitch a retailer and say, look, this is a new share of wallet, it's not an and or for your customer, it's not an or, it's an and product. We've been lucky with that.
I'd say for us, it's doctors reaching out to us, which was really exciting. We are science-backed and we have medical advisors on our team, obviously, but to have outside medical professionals hear about us, try the product, use it, see results, recommend it to their patients, and then reach out to us is pretty amazing. And just proof that what we're doing is really interesting and important and it's working. And we haven't gone to retail yet, but that is, I think, a very obviously important factor for us. It's you can't go to retail until people understand what you're doing. We shouldn't be on Target shelves tomorrow if people are what's the difference between hair dye and your product? I don't understand. So I think it depends on your company, but having those brand advocates that are, like you said, not paid. I think people can see through the paid stuff at this point.
And I think we see that, I think in every industry there is a group that, you can go to that are the trusted advisors. And in our case, it's medical professionals and it's also hairstylists. And it's people that really do touch and feel the customer that we are trying to speak to. And so for us, it's about, identifying and finding those hairstylists or those professionals that have been exposed to so many things. And when they sign on and say, I really love the way that this feels, that validates us because the science is what matters. But what maintains our customer base as the products work, feel and smell and help them feel good about themselves. And we've also had some interesting, situations with people that are, influencers, if you will, but not that we've reached out to them, but they've reached out to us. And we've seen the effect of, their influence without knowing that they were engaging. So they would post about us and then we would see this spike in sales. And then you start to see, wow, this person didn't have to do that, but they took the time out of their life to speak about something that they believed in. And that was really, I think, the most authentic way. We can do that fast and we can try and go and procure people to tell the message, but we want people to tell the message their way. And that's what's most important.
Yeah, I would say some of the best connections we've made have actually been from people who are passionate about skincare and food. Fermentation works in both ways, and I think for us specifically, we've had a lot of luck in people feeling very passionate about the fermentation itself, and whatever application that applies to. It's almost like they're feeling like they're trying to get more information, trying to spread the word because they can tell that you're trying to educate, you're trying to create a disruption in the market, and they want to help you get there. And I would say organically, that's probably happened mostly from our customers or even just people who have found us at other shops or online, they like this, that on Instagram or whatever. But they want to help you get to a similar goal and be the best brand that you can and kind of have the same message that you're trying to portray. They're trying to help you out with that.
To shift topics a little bit, but I think one of the probably single best indicators of the strength of the founder is the ability of the founder to have self-awareness in terms of how they're thinking about building up their team. So complementing their strengths with areas where they can supplement with somebody else's strength. Can you tell me, you may be on the process of doing this or you may have done this, but how did you think about your first hire, or the first team member that you brought on to help you on the team, or how are you thinking about that, or how are you approaching that overall?
I don't know if you can tell, but we have a pretty awesome dynamic, and I think it's really important to have a co-founder. I mean, going it alone is also obviously possible and fine, but I think it's finding complementary skill sets. And then we actually turned to a lot of family members in the process of this, and Jay's wife is our creative director, and it's surrounding yourself with people you trust and that you already have a connection to, and so it's really such a huge endeavor to start a company, and so when you do it with a group of people that you just inherently know have your back and have the skills, obviously it makes it a lot easier to launch and to do a startup.
I think for us, it was also bootstrap is a word used quite commonly over the last 3 years of our existence. And it's that mentality that, we may not necessarily be experts at everything that we're handed, but we're willing to try and understand how to do it, at least up to a certain threshold. And then we realize, okay, we've gotten it to this point. TikTok, for example, guys, I'm on TikTok. I don't know anything about TikTok, but over the last 6 weeks, I've learned a lot. And I'll say that you can learn a lot in 6 weeks, but then at the 7th week, you should find someone to perfect it. And the whole goal is that it's hard to hire someone for a job if you don't know how to do that job. And that maybe is also part of it too, is that through this process, we've learned what our skill sets are, what we want to focus on, but we also understand what we're asking people to do, and that's very important.
We've had a super similar experience. It's just me as the founder, so I was doing everything myself, definitely turning towards family members to help out, because trust is such a huge thing. But you definitely get to a certain point when you're doing all the marketing, the formulation, the reaching out to press, and you realize you're just not good at everything. So there's a certain point where you need to find people that are definitely like-minded and be able to complement the skills that you have, because it's just impossible to do everything yourself.
Yeah, I think of hiring opportunities as opportunities for things that I hate doing. So if it's the thing that has to get done by Friday and at 4 p.m. on Friday, you're thinking, okay, I still gotta do this. It's probably, I keep a running list of those sort of items, and that goes into the decision making for when to hire. And then the other thing is we lean heavily on contractors. And because, we found there's a lot of great talent, especially in the creative space, where, people are working at a big fashion brand, who are like doing social media for like Supreme, for instance, and want to do something on the side, make some spending money, and also feel like they're part of something, small and new. And it doesn't mean giving them, bips or anything. Like, you can just figure out a day rate and put them to work. And a few of those have evolved into people putting up their hands and saying, we want to work with you. And in some cases, it's like going on a lot of first dates and second dates. You do a couple months with people and you just think, I can probably find someone better. And the last thing kind of on this is, I also think like there's a great labor arbitrage opportunity to be had. I know it's like maybe a touchy thing to say, but like I'll shamelessly plug that I'm from Toronto, Canada, and we have more creative talent in Toronto pulling espresso shots right now because and doing little graphic design projects on the side, selling t-shirts, doing that kind of stuff. And so I think where you can find those kind of people who desperately want to build a portfolio or have a small portfolio but don't have people paying them and are just looking for paid gigs, right? It does wonders for them. It helps build them up, and also generally like they step up to the plate and think to themselves like, I better take this out of the park or else I'm never going to get another chance with this. And so where you can, there's a great with where the US dollar is right now. It's good. It's a good place to be hiring creatives.
Great. Shifting topics a little bit, but I think as we're sitting on the investor side, one thing that's really critical for us to understand is really like how do you think about how are you approaching building a captive, and really what are the types of partners that you're looking to have a long-term relationship with, and how purposeful are you in terms of selecting the individual players that will fit with you in the future or something like that. I'm curious to kind of get you guys' perspectives on that.
It's probably been our number one focus when we raised sort of like friends and family sort of seed or pre-seed round, was focusing on that just because ideally we spent a lot of time sussing out people who weren't going to just tell us, the day after we launched or the day after we wired the money, all right, let's pump ads, like let's just absolutely burn this thing to the ground as quickly as possible. And so for us, it's a lot of time spent with me sort of bearing the gory details of how I want to run the business. And if it's a way that you agree with, or it's a way that you can contribute to. And I mean, it's very collaborative, but I think that's really key. And so the result is, you focus on people who have backgrounds either that are going to support you operationally, or come from a world that are used to slower, longer builds, or just like focus on building long-term brand equity and not like quick flips.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would just also say, like, the cap table to me is two different things. It's investors and then it's people that you're bringing onto the cap table and paying them with equity, which we did do a fair amount of in the beginning because we bootstrapped and we didn't have a lot of cash to spend, but I wanted to bring on people who believed in the concept, believed in the idea, and were committed to it. We didn't pay ourselves for the first 2 years. And so, I think it's one thing for investors, that's a different part of your cap table, and then it's really thinking about who are the other people who you want to bring into your brand that can accelerate and help you, and you can pay them with equity. It's a hugely important tool. Not a lot of people are very precious about the equity, which you should be, but you should also be a little bit generous with giving equity to people who can really help you.
I mean, I think, for us, it goes back to the hiring thing before, it's personality. So when you're realizing this is a long-term relationship and you want people that share the values, and that's the thing that you can never change. Money is money, but when it comes to what the guiding light that got you to be in the room, never forget what got you to be in the room with an investor. There's something that appealed to them about you, and that's the same thing that you need to feel from them about how when you leave and you sign, the relationship will unfold.
Yeah, I think especially for long-term relationships, you want to be able to both feed off of each other. You both want to have a similar goal at the end of it all, and I think it's really important for both parties to want to keep the authenticity of the brand, especially because you're not really looking for somebody to dilute you out and turn it into something else. You want somebody to help you build what you know is special and be able to share it to a wider range of your audience, and definitely be able to work off of each other to get to that end goal.
So we're almost out of time, but I want wanted to end on, what are you guys most excited about for the future? What's next year? What's one thing that you're most excited about building?
Getting paid.
Yeah.
Very, I think.
It's all coming out right here on stage, guys.
No, I think it's exciting that for us, we're in a place now. Year 1 was us believing. Year 2 was our friends and family believing. And now in year 3, as that happens, now it's about kind of educating the world on this kind of greater message. And we get to continue to do that. And anytime you get to continue month after month, even though it might be hard or stressful, to do the thing that you started to do, that is success in a slow and steady pace. And so, yeah, I'm excited for that.
I would say we're most excited about where our technology can go. We started out with the technology and we kind of created skincare out of it, but there's so many other applications, and I think we're very excited to see where we can do that, where we can bring out some more innovation and create even more of a disruption in the market in the future.
I think for me, I'm most excited about distribution. We have a new product coming out, cleanser coming out in a week and a half, and we've got a lineup of some I would call them small retailers to folks in the audience who come from the big world, but the kind of retailers that I went into growing up and thought oh wow, it would be the coolest job in the world to work here or run this business or be a buyer for them, and we're launching with a few of those. And so just getting to go into those stores and buy my own product there has really rubbed my engine there.
We have a dry shampoo coming out in January. I just have to plug that.
Let's go.
It's pretty amazing. I don't know if you guys use dry shampoo out there, but I haven't been able to find one that I really love. And this one's amazing and also slows gray hair and repigments gray hair. So.
Any other plugs anybody wants to make while we have a minute? Well, I think I'll make a plug.